So Judge Lucero is going to start.
So we were hoping to have a PowerPoint presentation as well. And is that happening, everyone? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, here. Do we need to push the PowerPoint thing?
That's a TV, not a touchscreen.
Oh, okay. Anyway, they're going to figure this out. I have all the faith in the world. So, and at my TA support that I brought with me is my husband of 32 years, because apparently the cord only goes to that one little chair. Okay, so he's going to sit there, and I don't have a, whatever, remote. So, no, go back. Okay, so thank you, Raza Roundtable, for always over the years, and there have been many decades, for always supporting me and letting me share the important work that I have done over many decades to support our youth. And I'll just go ahead and get started. My office is within the California Health and Human Services Division. So we are championing interventions for youth that are through a health lens. And I wanted to start with a quote that I love. If we have no peace, it's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Those were the sentiments of Mother Teresa, and more recently, those of Father Gregory Boyle of the Los Angeles-based Homeboy Industries, an organization that disrupts those who choose the gang lifestyle by offering jobs, friendships, and futures without violence. My journey over the last 3 decades has been marked with this purposeful work, first as a prosecutor, then as a judicial officer for over 20 years. And in my work, I did a lot of problem-solving courts. And one of the things that I did with my work is I championed the inherent worth and dignity of every individual that came into my court. I had a front row seat to the human condition, and it was the honor of my life to be such a witness, to see every human that I met in my courtroom during their most difficult crisis in their full potential, to know that we are all connected, and to discover for them a solution that was actual justice. Victor asked me to share, and Bob asked me to share specifically about my current post. Friday, it marked my 2-year anniversary. We can go next. In 2020, legislation was signed by Governor Newsom that closed the state youth prison system. I wanted you to just think for a moment about what that was like in the 1990s. There were 10,000 kids incarcerated at the state level. When it was closed in 2020, there was less than 1,000. And by all accounts, for the third quarter of this year, the kids that have been realigned that used to be sent to the statewide youth system, there's about less than 550. Due to the years and years of juvenile reform work by policy leaders and advocates such as yourselves, the citations and arrests of kids has dropped dramatically. After the youth detention system was closed at the state level, counties are now charged with the care and rehabilitation of their own youth. There is no place any longer far away that youth are sent after they commit a serious law violation, as it was in the past, because research shows that youth do better and that communities are safer when youth are close to home, engaged with their families and other people that love them, and when they are not in large congregate care facilities. 36 counties in the state now have secure youth treatment facilities. And as I indicated, as of the third quarter of 2023, there were less than 550 youth. This slide shows the dramatic drop in youth offenses, citations, and referrals. There was, you can see in 2022, and this is Department of Justice data, there was an increase, but if you look at 2019, the pre-pandemic numbers, it is still much lower. So when we were in total lockdown, it dipped. Then, 2021 it dipped, and now it went up a little bit in 2022. This is still substantially lower than previous totals. In fact, in 2012, there was 120,000 plus arrests compared to 26,000 in 2022. Next slide. This is the slide that represents probation referrals to probation in California. And as you know, those referrals come from the police officers, like our chief, San Jose PD, makes those referrals after they are intervening in the community if there has been a law violation. So referrals are very also down. And I also attribute that to a lot of police diversion across the state. Some cities actually have very robust police diversion programs, which my office hopes to help champion. Next. This slide is really dramatic. It shows the trend of youth facing adult court. And you remember there was a time when the DA could file directly 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids to adult court. After, you can see that in 2022, this is a very staggering number, that only 12 kids in the whole state were transferred to adult court. So it's an extraordinary thing in California to have a youth tried as an adult. In 2008, it was closer to 1,000. So there's been a very big dramatic drop in the use of charging and, well, not charging, but transferring youth to adult court. Next. One of the things that I'd like to make sure we all keep ourselves aware of is that families and youth that I have seen in court systems and that the data shows are primarily people who are very low in resources, poor people, Black, brown, and Native youth. Black, brown, and Native youth are overrepresented in the juvenile justice systems and the child welfare systems, and they are more likely to come into the attention of law enforcement, more likely to be charged, incarcerated, and to stay in detention longer. Dr. Kristen Henning, who authored The Rage of Innocence, she's a Georgetown University law professor, sheds light on this by opining that adolescence is only for some youth, that perhaps Black, brown, and Native youth do not have the privilege of an adolescence. That is her opinion, but it's a book well worth reading, and it does bear out in the data. Next slide. President Biden appointed a woman by the name of Liz Ryan. She's the administrator of the National Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and she has 3 goals, and I have adopted those. The first is to treat youth as youth. The second is to keep youth at home with services or in the community whenever possible. And the third is to open opportunities for youth involved in the juvenile justice system. Next slide. The U.S. Supreme Court has recognized, do we get the next slide, honey? Has recognized that, that the current system is an adult male-centric system, and that kids are not just mini criminals. They are in a period of dynamic human development at the ages that they can be brought into a custodial facility. That dynamic period of human development is marked by impulsiveness, poor ability to see how their actions impact others, and an underdeveloped sense of responsibility. And they also have an incredible ability to learn and change and redirect. So kids are different. And the U.S. Supreme Court has recognized the brain science of adolescent brain development, has indicated that the following in some of their significant decisions that you can see in this PowerPoint, like ending the juvenile death penalty and laws that automatically sentenced youth to life without parole. What is critical to remember is that youth who enter the juvenile justice system come with high numbers of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. They come from the least resourced schools and neighborhoods and are often forced to live in high crime areas. Their parents often work 2 or 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. And many children and youth are left unsupervised after school and cannot afford pro-social activities like club soccer, tennis, swimming, and music lessons. Trauma combined with a lack of enriching after-school activities makes this period of adolescence an even more precarious time for youth. Next. My office was developed to develop a new approach, closing the statewide youth prison system, DJJ, developing local facilities that can house youth up to the age of 25. Youth who offend sexually no longer have to register. And it established my office within the California Health and Human Services Division. We are not in the Correctional Division. We are in the Health and Human Services Division. And our office supports positive youth development, which holds youth accountable, sees youth as a resource, not as a villain or a victim, and seeks to infuse youth with support by recognizing that they are humans who will soon be adults, who can contribute to our communities. Positive youth justice encourages all youth to dream and to plan about how it is they will serve the universe, and to assist them to do that, rather than punish, stigmatize, and hold the belief that redemption will never come. Next. The vision and mission of my office is here to envision a healthy California where all youth are able to be responsible, thriving, engaged members of our communities while promoting that trauma-responsive, culturally informed, youth, gender-honoring youth involved, for all youth involved in the juvenile system, and support them in their successful transition to adulthood. My office is budgeted for 30 positions. I'm 80% full. When I was here last, I was the second person hired. We have a communications team and contractors and consultants. We have 4 divisions: a data and research division, a systems change and equity division, a health policy division, and an ombuds division. Next. Our ombuds division implements the Youth Bill of Rights for incarcerated youth that you see here and investigates complaints. The complaints made by youth, their families, communities, even staff. Next. We have some key collaboratives. I'm doing a lot with an amazing vision that my boss has, Secretary Galley, an amazing vision that the state has. We have a Youth Justice Committee that is part of the Child Welfare Council, which is a statewide council that helps youth-serving organizations throughout the state serve all youth. My goal is to put our juvenile justice youth in the child-serving agenda in any way I can with the Health and Human Services agencies. We have a lot of different, we have the Department of Social Services, the Department of Rehabilitation, the Department of Developmental Services. The 3 priorities that our Youth Justice Committee has is to make sure that there's quality education for youth who are incarcerated and for youth who are on probation, to help build a less restrictive program continuum, and to do capacity building for CBOs. As you can see here, we have a variety of initiatives. One I want to highlight is education and literacy in particular, because they're protective factors. Educational health is as important as mental health and physical health. Social health is educational health for a young person. First and foremost, we should view them all as students. They committed the offense when they were 14, 15, 16, or 17. So they are students. How can we help kids who have historically been pushed out of schools, alienated from sports, programs, student government, drama classes, see themselves as students and college material? Be that a college student who wants to seek a PhD or a vocational certificate. How can we give them, our youth, who are involved in the juvenile justice system, a lifelong love of learning? which ignites the mind and the imagination and helps us to believe that all things are possible. We recommend that youth live in the most restrictive setting for the least amount of time and have youth step back into the communities when it is safe for them with a high-touch model that involves making sure that they are able to support themselves, attend college, work, and live successful lives once they reach the age of 18 and beyond. I mean, we're all supporting our adult children, let's be honest. Next. I did want to highlight that I've taken the initiative that I started here to end the incarceration of girls and gender-expansive youth statewide. I have some allies here in the audience that helped me do that work. Karina Herrera helped me do that work while I was here. I have to let you know that on my last day of the bench here in Santa Clara County, which was January 14th, 2022, I had 0 girls incarcerated here in Santa Clara County. Now, thank you. Now, I know we do have a few girls incarcerated here now who fell into a category of needing that that intensive secure youth treatment intervention, but my understanding is that juvenile hall tends to still run very low numbers, if not 0. I've taken this initiative across the state. We are in LA now, Sacramento, Imperial, and San Diego. Girls and gender-expansive youth are often incarcerated for misdemeanors and status offenses. In 2022, it was over 50%. We want to end the use of juvenile detention for youth who are not a risk to public safety. Locking up girls is an old narrative that started hundreds of years ago. Girls are often locked up to keep them safe. But we have more tools, research, data, science, creativity, and the knowledge of the devastating harm that it causes girls and gender-expansive youth to allow this default position to remain. The sexual assault to prison pipeline is real for girls and gender-expansive youth. So how can we move as a society to help all youth be their best selves, the self that they came here to be, the self underneath, the shame, the guilt, the desperation? How can we embrace them and let them be welcomed back into our communities? I need all of you for that. My work, I gave you a good overview of the work. I could talk for hours about this, but I did want to leave you with another quote by Father Gregory Boyle, and then I'll take some questions. And he says in his book, Tattoos on the Heart, he says, "What is the delivery system for resilience? In part, it's the loving, caring adult who pays attention. It's the community of unconditional love, representing the no matter whatness of all that is good. And sometimes resilience arrives in the moment you discover your own unshakable goodness." He then quotes poet Galway Kinnell, who writes, "Sometimes it's necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness. And when that happens, we begin to foster a tenderness for our own human predicament. A spacious and undefended heart finds room for everything that you are and carves out space for everyone else." So, let us belong to each other once again. There is no them and us. There's only us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trask.
I thought he did it exceptionally.
He did.
Are there any
Yes.
questions?
Yes.
Yes, first of all, thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for the work that you've done. As a kid, I did juvenile hall in 1979 as well. And the conditions that were there, I'm part of those statistics that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're using statistics of children in 3rd grade that are growing up in the barrios, and the prison system is monetizing the poverty and the conditions that that child is experiencing in order to determine how many prison beds they're going to need in the future. Now, what my question is to you, how do we change that on the local level? How do we get the racial equity offices that are impotent? They are impotent. They have no power. How do we empower them in order to start instituting policy for the allocation of the resources necessary to deal with these conditions that you referenced?
Well, I hope that you saw from the presentation that there is a huge commitment to making sure that less youth are arrested, incarcerated. How do we get to that place of equity and to have, the schools be funded and after-school programs flourish? I think that we come to rooms like this. And I think that we work together and prioritize. And Victor has always kind of had a pulse on what communities need. I always imagined that our community would begin to stand up and say things like, somebody needs a house, let's find one. Somebody needs a foster home, let's develop foster homes. Somebody needs a child advocate in a child welfare court, let's sign up. Let's everybody sign up for child advocates. It's us. We are the ones that we've been looking for, as Rumi says. This is where we come. We come to rooms like this. It is a one by one. There's no silver bullet. This is us. This is what we do. Thank you for being here.
Any other questions?
Thanks for being here. I worked in a girls' youth detention center in Australia in 1978, and the issues were exactly the same as they are now. Young girls being arrested and put into juvie for not being safe, being abused, raped, drugged, sent to Arabia, trafficked. So how do we make our communities safer so they don't need to go to juvenile hall?
Well, I think Santa Clara County has really risen to the occasion. There are so many examples of how Santa Clara County began to take responsibility, including myself as the judge. I would have sworn on my father's grave that I never incarcerated a medium risk or low risk girl, and I did, because the data wasn't being kept clearly. When we started looking at data and we started to operate as a collaborative with mental health, drug and alcohol, DSS, probation, DA, public defender, we made a difference. So I wish I could tell you there's a magic recipe, but what we're finding now with our statewide initiative is that every community is different, has different strengths, but every community can solve their own problems. And this is the human condition, Gabriela. It's Gabriela, right? This is the human condition, so I'm not surprised that we see the same things, but we can respond differently. And I believe that we are.